Yeah, I mean, a couple of things there. You know, there's the law is only going to be so useful in a time-sensitive situation where you're dealing with really intransigent people because they know they can run the clock out on you. I mean, they know that even if you get the world's best lawyer and the world's nicest judge on the world's luckiest day, you're still not going to get a court order within, what, 30 days maybe? I mean, and so 30 days in a story like that where the hours are ticking,
Yeah,
you know.
and they probably didn't bother reporting this thing, was what my suspicion was. And
Right.
He's kind of a screw-up kid, you know, but...
Right. Well, a couple of things there. I mean, and that's a wonderful example. You know, well, one is the records held by the police department, right, by an agency that is not a school, are not FERPA records. That's, I mean, that's.
They
Right.
did allow me to come in and investigate
Right.
selected portions,
Right.
redacted portions of the cop records.
Right.
They actually gave me a fair amount, but they wouldn't allow me to make copies of them or take anything
Okay.
with me. But we were able to find them.
Wrong answer, wrong answer, wrong answer. If you can see it, you can copy it. If you can see it, you can copy it. That's, there is no Public Records Act anywhere that says eyes-only inspection. There's not the law. And you know what I tell people is just take a damn cell phone picture of it. Just, you know, thank you very much. You don't have to Xerox it anymore. You got a cell phone picture of it.
They knocked you out. No, you can't do that. It was my first. That was my first.
Sure.
Case dealing with law enforcement.
Sure. Here's, you know, in general. In general, and I realize that when you're dealing with people who are determined to be jerks, this doesn't always work. But remember that the starting point of all Open Records Act, the starting point of every state act is that you get to see everything they have unless they can point to an exception. So the assumption is, I get it. The assumption is not, you get to parcel out little crumbs to me. The assumption is, I get it, unless you can show me why not. And so I would, in the sweetest possible way, and you seem very sweet and unthreatening, and so you could pull this off, right, is, can you show me where in the law it says that? Can you show me where in the law it says that? I think that is a kind of a conversation stopper sometimes, because the fact is they almost never can. They almost never can. And so, again, the assumption is you get the stuff. If they can't show you where in the law it says you don't get it, then it's yours. And it's yours to copy, to take notes off of, and once you have it, you can put it on the billboard at Madison Square Garden. You put it, do anything with it that you want. It is your information.
You eventually trace back to the trail.
Yeah.
In ways they had dropped the ball by talking to like the
Great.
state park agency, the rangers. I told them about, I don't know why they
Yeah.
did it for 3 weeks.
Another thing that I sometimes suggest with that is go up the ladder. Keep climbing the ladder in the agency until you find one of two things. Either a person who really knows the law, right, so which may be the general counsel for the agency, or a person who's politically accountable, like a city council member, right? In a case where the police department are jerking you around, sometimes what I suggest is find out who is the chair of the public safety committee on the city council, because that will be the person to whom the police chief is ultimately accountable, right? And if the people in uniforms and with badges are not cooperating, they have bosses too, and the chair of the public safety committee is that person's boss. And I wouldn't do that every day because you're going to piss them off and you're going to burn them, you know. But in a, you know, where you have to go nuclear like that, in a case like that, where, you know, again, you got a huge story, public is very concerned about it, you know, hours count. You can't screw around. So yeah, I would you know go to the person who is the most accountable and politically sensitive person and explain. You know, you realize, right, how bad this is going to look if it looks like the police dropped the ball on a person who could have been saved with faster action. You know, I mean, appeal to their political instincts. Go ahead, you have a point.
I'm sorry. Is it more difficult, or again, my experience has been it's been more difficult to get information about police officers and, you know, perhaps incident reports that they filed, or, you know, complaints against them,
Yeah.
as opposed to, you know, a city council person
Mhm.
or any other legislative
Yep.
body. Should it be? Should that difference be there? Is there?
Here's the thing. Almost every state has got a law which has some kind of a blanket exception that lets the police withhold things that pertain to an ongoing investigation. And that's like the, or open investigation sometimes, but that's usually the buzzword, open investigation or ongoing investigation. And that is a widely overused exception. But whenever you get a response like that, two things. First of all, don't take it at face value, right? I mean, question it. Exactly what are you still investigating here, right? What are you still investigating? Because I have seen them do this, and we just had this happen at a college in Nebraska where they arrested 3 guys for a series of burglaries in a dorm room. And all the paper wanted was the names of the guys that they arrested. And the police said, oh, sorry, ongoing investigation. And I said, they're in jail. I mean, they know they were arrested. This is not a secret to them, and they got a phone call. They got to call mom, mom knows, their friends know, whatever, right? It's not a secret. There's nothing to be served anymore by withholding that information. And sometimes you just gotta, argue back. The other thing is, ask for the information with just the bare minimum blacked out, and at least you get, hopefully, the narrative. And that's what they wound up getting in Nebraska. They wound up getting, okay, we're not going to give you the names, but we'll give you the narrative that shows here's what happened. 3 TVs and 5 laptops were taken between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Sunday, something like that. So they got at least a story out of it. So you bargain, you haggle, you take a little less than 100%. But yeah, I mean, that is a unique exception to police records that doesn't apply to city council or county commission records, is that ongoing investigation one. But you ought not take that at face value because it does get overused. The other thing with police is, those of you who are dealing with campus police, right? If you're dealing with college campus police, there are federal disclosure laws that come into play there as well, and you're entitled to a lot of information under federal law called the Clery Act as well. And so, if you're dealing with college campus police, don't ever let them tell you like, oh no, I can't confirm that crime happened. You'll have to check back 2 weeks from Thursday, kind of thing. You're entitled to a lot of information under both federal and state law at a college campus, and that even includes private college campuses. Even private college campuses have to tell you at least the what, the where, and the when of the crimes that get committed because federal law mandates that. And we have a whole guide on the website called Covering Campus Crime. I think I have a couple of hard copies with me. They're heavy, so I didn't carry a lot, but yeah, I got a couple of hard copies with me. If anybody wants one of these and doesn't get one from me, just send me a message and I'll send you as many as you want. And SBJ actually funds us producing this, but this is specifically about getting information out of college campus police agencies. I want to let me finish up on FERPA just a little bit here, and then we'll turn to some of these other examples. We're doing okay on time. FERPA. If you get the FERPA response, right, if you are told, I'm sorry, you can't have that because it's a confidential education record. Again, kick into the, show me where it says that mode, right? Kick into that mode. Show me where it says that in FERPA that I can't have that. Think about, can you settle for something less than 100% production? For example, okay, FERPA is only about the identifying personal information. But you should always be able to get data and statistics. Data and statistics are not individually identifying, right? And so if all you want to know is how many times did the university punish somebody for committing like a sexual assault on campus each of the last 3 years, you just want that number, right? They cannot claim FERPA as to that number. Now, I will tell you, we just finished a 3-year-long fight with the University of Maryland on that exact point that wound up having to go all the way to the state attorney general. And the state attorney general had to issue a ruling saying, no, give them the information. But so people will resist you on that. But statistics are not confidential student information. So think about whether the numbers will tell the story or the narrative will tell the story, even if the identities won't. Last thing on that, if you do get the FERPA excuse, please call us, because we have kind of an ongoing dialogue going on with the Department of Education where we're trying to pass them examples of particularly egregious abuses of FERPA in hopes of wearing them down a little bit so that maybe they'll go with us to Congress and try to get the sucker fixed. So if you have a particularly outlandish example of records requests being denied on the grounds of student confidentiality, let us know, because I got to tell them. My all-time favorite one was at Emporia State University in Kansas. They had you know, like every college campus, right, there's problems with parking, there's shortage of parking. And there was a particular parking spot right out front of the administration building that was a coveted parking spot. Well, somebody parked their car and just frickin' left it there. And it got booted in place. So nobody could use the primo parking spot because this booted car was sitting there. Well, the paper wants to write about this, right? There's a story. People are grumbling about this. They're annoyed about it. Or, you know, thousands of people are walking by it every day. And they say, look, we see a student decal on the window, so we know this is a registered car with the school. Can you give us the identity of who this car is registered to? And they said, no, that's FERPA information. The identity of the person who owns the car that's hogging this parking space is FERPA information, even though all they wanted to do was they wanted to call the person and interview him and say, hey, dumbass, why did you leave your car here for 6 months, you know? And they couldn't get it. I don't think they've gotten it to this day. And so that's the kind of, you know, sort of nonsensical way that this well-intended privacy statute is being used to block things that have nothing to do with your status as a student, right? I mean, I could have parked my car there. I could have left my car there and got it booted, even though I'm not a student there. So you were parking there in your student capacity, you know, and so it's kind of a goofy, but unfortunately not an uncommon use of FERPA. Let me show you a couple of examples of really outstanding stories people have done in the last couple of years that illustrate some. Let's start with this one from Tarleton State down in Texas. This is an example of sort of the principle of public records that I would call trust but verify, which is, if you get public records, that should be your starting point for reporting and not your ending point for reporting, because statistics can lie. I mean, they're only as good as the people who compile the numbers, right? So sometimes your reporting is about the inconsistency or the incompleteness of the statistics, right? This has been a kind of a recurring thing when it comes to crimes on campus in particular, is schools, unsurprisingly, do not like to be portrayed as places where crime happens. And they know that parents are looking at these crime reports to see how safe the school is. And so if there's any way at all they can downplay a crime so as not to put it on their mandatory annual report. There's a mandatory annual report that every school has to compile, every college has to compile, public and private, of serious crimes on campus. And this has got to be distributed to the campus community, a 3-year rolling total. So in October of this coming year, you will get the last 3 years worth of crime at every one of your colleges and schools. Well, so at Tarleton State University in Texas, the student reporters looked at this 3-year report. It's a pretty good-sized school in Texas, and they saw that for sexual assaults, the column read 0, 0, 0 for 3 years. And, you know, they looked at this and said, okay, now, come on, you know, it seems like a safe place, but is it that safe that it did 0 reports in 3 years? And they even went back and said, let us see the historical ones, and there were 2 more 0 years, or 5 years in a row, of 0 sexual assaults. And, you know, at this point, right, this is where your common sense becomes your friend, is they said, well, if something looks too good to be true, it probably is. And they went and they dug in other secondary sources. One of the best ones is the FBI. The FBI has what they call Uniform Crime Reporting System, and through the FBI UCR system, they were able to determine that during that period of time, when Tarleton State said they had 0 and 0 and 0 sexual assaults, they had 12. They had 12 that the FBI found that had been reported to local law enforcement agencies that should have shown up on the Tarleton Clery Act report and did not. They took the stats and they confronted their school. And again, right, important when you're reporting that you take the stats back. You don't just run and start publishing and say, university lied, right? Because it's possible there's a logical explanation. It's possible that there's 2 different classification systems and these are apples and oranges. In this case, there wasn't. In this case, the explanation was, oh shit, we screwed up. And the U.S. Department of Education wound up dinging these guys over $100,000, say $137,000, for inaccurate crime reporting. Great story done by enterprising, aggressive student journalists who didn't just stop with the records request. I mean, it would, you know, a lot of people would stop with the records and they would say, you know, Tarleton State, safest college in America, no rapes for 3 years, right? And they would say, yeah, it's a really good story, you know. But these guys kept digging, and they did a great public service by doing that. I'll show you the this is one of my one of my new favorite ones here. Get this to open up. The person who is the early bird who gets the worm in public records law is the person who thinks like a detective and thinks, okay, what are all of the ways that a government agency might memorialize information? What are all the ways that a government agency might keep data? And if you just let your mind run wild, you can get a story like this. This story ran at the end of last year in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Highly paid PSC officials not showing up at the office. These are guys who are on the State Utility Regulating Commission, and they're paid a nice full-time salary, six-figure full-time salary, that one would think entails coming to work on a fairly regular basis. And what happened is that they got a tip, basically. It started with a tip.